elephant in the room. We're a little bit late with our review of the MOZA R5 bundle, and there is good reason behind that, because while everybody, including us, got their units pre-release, ready for embargo to release their reviews when MOZA revealed this to the world, we were in the same position. We had it, we'd unboxed it, I'd put it on this rig, and this happened. Okay, it's definitely not seeing the wheel, so the buttons at present won't work and nor will this rev strip, it seems. Let's see if we get an update overnight or something. I'll see you tomorrow. Yet tomorrow became like 6-7 weeks later because our review unit that MOZA sent us didn't work. The wheel didn't speak to the bass whatsoever, and the pedals did not really speak to the bass properly either. But MOZA, they were really understanding. They said, no problem, we'll send you out a brand new review unit, which is this one. And that was really good of them, so thank you MOZA for that. But they did actually say, hang fire on your review, because we've got something coming, an additional thing releasing for the MOZA R5, which we'll get to. And yeah, we'll get to that bit, but that's why it's been so long. But here it is. This is the MOZA R5 bundle. This is a 5.5 Newton meter bass. It's an entire sim ecosystem in one box. That's a bass, a wheel, a set of pedals, and a desk mount. And if that sounds familiar, you're not the only one, because this is very much a product going up against the Fanatec DD Pro, the Gran Turismo one they released earlier this year. And while, no, you can't exactly use this as a replacement for a DD Pro because, as with other MOZA products, this is PC only, it is very much taking the fight to that kind of product. And since MOZA have been, by and large, knocking it out of the park for the last sort of year and a half, 2 years, people are really impressed with this stuff. Everyone was very excited to get their hands on one of these, as were we. So much so we have two. One just doesn't work. So first of all, let's talk about the bass itself. It is a 5.5 Newton meter bass. It's called the R5 for a reason. There's R9, R16, and R21. MOZA know how to name things nice and simply. So 5.5 Newton meters is the torque you get to play with. And it's all in a chassis that's very similar to the MOZA R9, albeit just a little bit squatter, which also means it's a little bit lighter, but it also means the mounting holes on the bottom are slightly closer together, so actually mounting it to something that you have may not work. For example, this is the Traxion FS3, the wheel stand, and this thing has got holes that can mount all 4 screws in the bottom. On the Next Level Racing Wheel Stand 2.0, which I mounted the first one that we got sent on, only 2 of the screw holes lined up, so keep that in mind. It is pretty much the exact same as the MOZA R9, however the I/O on the back has changed ever so slightly because now the pedals go straight into the bass and the bass goes into your PC. As far as I know, this is the first MOZA bass to have pedals go into the bass and then into the PC rather than having it go into the PC natively, needing 2 USB ports, one for the bass, one for the pedals, like we have to do with the R9. But all in all, the bass is the bass. It's pretty much exactly what you think it is. However, the quick release, the connectors on the end have changed ever so slightly, and that's something we'll get to in just a tick. And much like the DD Pro, it comes with a desk mount, and unlike the DD Pro, this thing is made out of entirely metal. The DD Pro one was plastic. It worked, but it was plastic. This thing is solid as anything. Screw the bass into that, mount it to your desk, Bob's your uncle. Lots of foam, lots of rigidity. Yeah, 5 Newton meters, no problem on a desk. Next up, the wheel is actually pretty basic by MOZA standards. It is very much going for that budget direct drive feel, albeit it looks and feels a lot better than this one that Fanatec did with the DD Pro. The wheel itself is 280 millimeters wide, which makes it a little bit narrower than the MOZA wheels of old, which is good for us because we thought the other MOZA wheels we've used are all a bit too wide. This thing matches the width of the DD Pro wheel and the Club Sport Formula, etc. The outer rim is a lovely leather material, and the center of the wheel is a little bit different to what we're used to with MOZA, because normally we're used to lots of mechanical buttons and a very MOZA layout, whereas this feels a lot more familiar to just sort of generic racing wheels. And that's not really a bad thing, because this looks almost like a controller, which is usually how entry-level wheels do things. They try not to make things look all fancy with its own layouts. They just go, here's a controller layout. There you go. We know what to do with this. The buttons are pretty bog standard buttons. They don't feel like the mechanical clicky boys we got on the other MOZA wheels, but as I said multiple times, you can't really cock up buttons unless you go out of your way to cock up buttons. They're buttons, they feel fine. You do have a 3-segment LED rev strip at the top of the wheel center as well, but in a similar vein to what Fanatec did with the DD Pro, this is a lot cheaper and a lot more straightforward than their usual RGB array of lovely LEDs. But at the end of the day, it works, so the fact they've skimped out a little bit on this is really not an issue. On the back, you have 2 shifters. You don't have any analog paddles on this guy, and while they're not magnetic, they do have a nice little click, nice little actuation click, and there's a bit of sort of spongy travel afterwards, and that's very familiar to those who've used a G923. They are absolutely fine shifters. And of course, the MOZA quick release is on the back of the wheel as well, and this is where things get a little bit interesting. And by interesting, I mean annoying, because if you have a look down the end of this wheel and you have a look at, say, the GS wheel that we reviewed before, the connectors are different. Look at the MOZA R9 and the MOZA R5. It is different. As for exactly why MOZA have changed this, I'm not entirely sure. It might be to accommodate for the FSR wheel that has a big screen on it. But this actually raises an issue. And I'm going to get this out of the way now before I get to more negatives a bit later, because unfortunately it means that if you want to use an older wheel that MOZA released, say the CS wheel or the GS wheel that we do have here at Traxion HQ, we've used them on the R9, we really like them, they won't work with the R5, and nor will this work on the R9. They won't speak to each other. Yes, you can put it on the actual quick release system itself, the ball bearings and this hasn't changed, but the connectors have. So if you wanted to use this on the R9, the buttons won't work. You can plug it on and steer with it, but you can't press start or A or P or box or wipers or N or cam or, yeah. It's a bit of a weird decision for MOZA to almost lock off the previous lot of accessories and products they've made and then start afresh with the R5, especially when you look at it, it looks like a MOZA product. It doesn't look like a whole new generation of thing. It's just, they've changed the quick release already. I get that products need to evolve and companies will tweak this, that, and the other, and there might be certain things that won't work with newer things, but they've literally just drawn a line in the sand. Even though the R16 and R21 have existed for a while, the R9 really put MOZA on the map. They put them in the eyes of sim racers, and now they've already drawn that line in the sand and moved on. It's a really weird decision from MOZA. But the wheel itself, it works. It is definitely a cheaper offering than what MOZA have done before, and especially compared to things like the FSR with a big old screen on it. But it works. It feels a lot better than what Fanatec did with the DD Pro, and while they did skimp on some things to save on price, that really isn't the most egregious one. But let's look at the pedals that come included, and they are the SRP light pedals. That might sound familiar because we reviewed the SRP pedals here on the Traxion channel, and these are quite simply a more budget-oriented version of them. In the box, you get a throttle and a brake, just the 2 pedals together, and you will have to move them inwards because they're packaged with both the pedals at their extremities either side. You have to move them in to get them in a bit more of a comfortable position. Not too difficult, you get all the tools, you'll be fine. But as said, they plug into the wheelbase via Cat5 Ethernet, which makes it A, a lot more straightforward, and B, a much more easy to get hold of cable in case you knacker it or you trap it in the brake mechanism and you chew the cable to bits or something. It makes it really easy to just go pop, pop and replace it. But if you are one for wanting 3 pedals, you can buy the SRP light clutch separately. So this is the clutch I have here, and this actually gives you a good idea as to how these look, because really the pedals are all pretty much exactly the same out of the box. The pedal plates can be moved up and down. I've done it with the accelerator pedal. You might be able to see it in the B-roll, but it's slightly higher than the brake pedal. But that's actually a big downside for the SRP lights. And this is the thing that MOZA asked us to kind of hang fire on our review to accommodate, because pretty much these pedals are exactly the same. The brake, the accelerator, and the clutch. They just have a little spring in it to push it back to its normal spots. No problem. But that includes the brake. The brake just has a little spring in the end of it, and that is about it. You don't get any resistance in the brake pedal, and that kind of means out of the box, the accelerator and the brake, the pedals as they are in the R5 bundle, they're not great. They're not bad. I mean, the throttle works no problem, and they go into the bass, they all work, but the brake has no resistance out of the box. It feels like they've actually missed a trick, and that's really where it seems that MOZA have cut their costs most. Fanatec made the Gran Turismo wheel feel a bit flimsy, a bit plasticky. Truth be told, this is actually our second one of these because our first one decided to break. We hadn't even used it all that much, and the paddles had stopped working. Awkward. But MOZA instead have gone and taken a little bit of money out of the pedal construction. While it is still completely metal, the brake missing a proper spring and elastomer, even a load cell, probably not in this kind of budget, but anything at all, it's a bit of an egregious mistake. And that is something that I had spotted in the initial video, the initial recording we did before we realized this thing didn't actually work, because I basically unboxed it all and did it all live, and we saw the brake and went, oh, that's a bit rubbish, isn't it? With initial feel, these don't feel any different. They are exactly the same. We weren't the only ones to spot that, not that we actually got our video out, but everyone else had said the same thing, and MOZA reacted pretty quickly, because now you can go on their store and buy their brake upgrade kit for £29 ex VAT, which then puts a spring and an elastomer into the brake pedal, making it feel more like a brake pedal. So as a reactionary thing, MOZA, that's actually fantastic. But on the flip side of that, why was that the thing that you took money away from in the first place? If we look at the DD Pro and the MOZA R5 next to each other and we say, okay, where have they taken the money out of this and the money out of that? While the wheel feeling pretty cheap isn't really brilliant, it's not overly egregious, but at least the brake pedal on the CSL pedals has got some resistance. It may only be a sponge, but it's something. The SRP Lite pedals don't have any resistance in the brake whatsoever unless you get that extra kit. No word as to whether that kit will be shipping with R5 bundles going forwards, but by the looks of it, you have to go on their store and buy it again. Fair enough to MOZA for giving people that option, but that's really something that should have been there in the base product in the first place. Even if it was something not as good as the upgrade kit that you've delivered, just something more than just that little metal spring in the back of the brake pedal. But if you want to use these pedals on the floor and you want to put the bass on its desk mount and whack it on your desk, the pedals do have big rubber feet on the bottom, so they will not be sliding around on the floor. That's a nice little thing to add in. And plus, a thing that I'd always love about MOZA is the fact that all the mounting hardware you want for the bass, for the pedals, it all comes in the box. MOZA, I genuinely love that you do this. I really do. I hate, even in an office full of sim racing gear, having to go and try and dig out M6 screws. It's amazing how easily they go missing. MOZA are like, here you go, there's some more. Love it. So you've decided what you're doing with the MOZA R5. You're putting it on your desk, you're putting it on an FS3 wheel stand like this one. What are you gonna do then? You plug it into your PC and you get things going. And we've praised MOZA's Pit House software in the past, and it continues to just be genuinely one of the best bits of sim racing hardware software going. Everything's really easy to change, the force feedback is super straightforward, and everything just works on the fly, so you can tab out of your game and go, gonna tweak that, tab back in, no problems at all. So when you're on the track, the MOZA R5, it feels exactly like you'd expect. It feels like a 5.5 Newton-meter wheelbase. The force feedback is crisp, it is punchy, it's really smooth. It feels exactly as you'd expect, and it gives you enough to play with when you're racing. Even if you're doing something a little bit more serious, you're doing sort of competitive stuff in iRacing, or you're playing ACC online or something like that, you will have more than enough information to play with. Maybe if you're going for something really serious, 5 Newton meters probably isn't for you, but if that's the case, you're probably not even watching this video, so why am I saying that? And while here on the Traxion channel we have mentioned that maybe paying for all of that headroom isn't really worth it, having a little bit of headroom is beneficial because you can get that little bit more detail, sharper, what would be almost stronger movements from what your Newton meters are set to. So having like 2 or 3 Newton meters worth of headroom can be beneficial to you, because sometimes there are points when going over curbs with the R5, you don't really feel it as much as you might expect. You jump onto the R9 and you very much can. But it is a really solid product when you look at it by itself. And to be honest, most of you might be looking at the R5 bundle and thinking, this is all I need. I don't need to worry about what else there is in this ecosystem or even in the market as a whole. And that's one of the biggest pros about this product, is it just works. You plug it in, it's really well made. The brake pedal, again, get the accessory kit, but it does just work. It's a fantastic bundle. And that's where the price comes in, and that is £569 excluding VAT. When you put VAT back on, it does almost equate to what the DD Pro costs, so you can pretty much put these two head to head. And of course, the main pro here is the fact that the wheel rim itself is a lot better than the Gran Turismo rim. The base itself is pretty much the same kind of deal with the DD Pro, however, you don't have PlayStation compatibility with this. So as its own bundle, as its own product, the R5 Simulator bundle is a fantastic shout, and it's pretty reasonably priced for what you get. But if you're looking at this as a potentially like a long-term investment, maybe the R5 bundle isn't the best shout, especially since you can't buy the R5 yet just by itself. Maybe something like the R9 would be better, but then you also have the issue of not having the same quick release for products going forward. So you've really put buyers in a bit of a pickle here, MOZA, unless you're happy just buying this as is, which is definitely a great shout. Thank you for MOZA for sending us the R5 twice, funnily enough, and as well for sending us the brake upgrade kit to include in our review. No console support, it's not everyone's taste to be playing sim racing on consoles, but as for how MOZA are going to go forward from here, we'll have to wait and see. If you have any questions regarding the MOZA R5, then please let us know in the comment section below, because we do look at the comments and we will reply to you if there's something we've missed in our look at the MOZA R5. So yeah, comment below. And why not subscribe while you're there as well, regardless of your racing discipline. It'd mean a huge amount to all of us. But thank you very much for watching, keep it pinned, and I'll see you next time.